Hello, good evening. It's John Heaton, and to celebrate the fact that I've now got 100 subscribers, thank you for subscribing if you have, and so I'm going to post my 40th video, and this was a request from Rockboy680. I'm going to review Ram from 1971, which was Paul's second solo outing after the Beatles. And the strange thing about this album is it got a really rough reception when it came out, particularly from the critics. Rolling Stone somewhat amusingly called it unbelievably inconsequential and monumentally irrelevant. I think someone else referred to it as plastic ducks on the wall type music. The other Beatles were not too impressed. Ringo said he didn't think there was one tune on it, which is rubbish, by the way. John said when he first heard it he thought it was effing awful, and then he got to like some of it later on. But and George said he could do an album as commercial as this if he wanted to, but chose not to and was rather highbrow about it. And the thing about this album is it is not as heavy as John's first solo album or George's first solo album. You could, at the time it was dismissed as lightweight. But it's not lightweight just because it doesn't have a heavy message. I mean, the music is what counts at the end of the day. The lyrics are fun, and just because he's not singing "The Dream Is Over" or "Hare Krishna" doesn't mean it's not a blooming good album. So, I mean, it has its flaws, which I'll come to, but on the whole, it's a very good album. I'll come to the back cover in a minute, because there's something which disturbs me on that. So this is the inner sleeve, and this particular copy, because I'm in London at the moment, is just a standard, I think it's a US copy on the Capitol label, but my English copy, which is back home in Hungary, is on the Apple label, which I think is more interesting, because there's so many fights among the Beatles at the time that I think to see the green apple was somehow a sign of continuity amidst all the bickering. But anyway, so I don't know if the US album originally came out on Apple, maybe you can leave a comment below, but this one's on Capitol and it's definitely a late 70s, early 80s reissue. I think about 1979-80 I got this. So it opens with Too Many People, which is one of my favourite Paul tracks of all time, and it's just a great little number, great opening number to the album. John took offence to some of the lyrics, saying they were aimed at him, and maybe a couple of them were, but pretty mild stuff, like too many people preaching practices. Don't let them tell them what you want to be. Not exactly sticking the knife in as far as I'm concerned. Three Legs, the second song, which is also a brilliant song. Lovely little melody, very zany guitar melody, and instrumentation. And this one is probably aimed at the other three Beatles, but although Paul's actually never officially admitted it, but lines like "My dog he got three legs, your dog he got none. When I thought you was my friend, you let me down and put my heart around the bend." So the trouble with this album is lines like that, which are a little bit of a dig, kind of detract from how good a song it is, because Three Legs is a great little song. Ramon is the title, sort of the title track, very short little ditty on the written on the ukulele, I think. Paul Ramon is the name that Paul gave himself on a tour of Scotland, I think it was. Ramon, R-A-M-O-N, so Ramon I think is a pun on that. I only read that recently, I don't know if that's true. Dear Boy, another nice little track, piano based, very good harmonies. Again, John thought this was aimed at him. Apparently it was aimed at Linda's first husband. So there you go. Then we come to Uncle Albert, which kind of divides opinion across Beatles fans. I think most Paul McCartney fans, stroke Wings fans, love it. And but some of the people who prefer John and George tend to dismiss it. It's not perfect, but it's got a great intro, and I think even John Lennon said that the first verse was great, and the hands across the water, he also loved that bit. He just didn't like the bits in the middle, but I think it's strung pretty well together, and it makes for a very interesting kind of novelty song, very clever, and it was a #1 hit in the US. So I love it. Smile Away, the last track on side 1, a lot of people like this track. I don't really care for it. I think it's a bit too rough and ready. I think the words are just a little bit meaningless, or very meaningless. I think it sounds like he knocked this off in 1 or 2 takes, but even if he'd worked on it, I don't think there's much of a song to deserve much attention. So I don't particularly like Smile Away. I think Linda's vocals are decent, by the way, throughout this album. She sings really nice harmonies with Paul, and on Smile Away they're pretty decent. And I think Elton John went on record saying he thought that Paul and Linda made a great vocal team, and they certainly do on this album, and throughout Wings to a lesser extent. I think on this album it's more pronounced. So moving on to side B, side 2, Heart of the Country is just a perfect acoustic song, and this probably sums up where Paul was at the time. He was just getting away from all the hassles of the Beatles split and hanging out in Scotland on the farm. And the lyrics are really heartfelt, and it's brilliant. Monkberry Moon Delight, very nice stomper, piano-based song, great vocal. And this even has a reference to the town I live in, Budapest. Billy Budapest, but you don't get the gist of my letter. Just nonsensical lyrics, but it's quite amusing to have Budapest in a McCartney song. So Eat at Home, next track, probably my favourite on the whole album. This is just superb, and a very underrated track. Kind of Buddy Holly-esque, lovely chord changes, lovely melody, great guitar from Dave Spinoza and Paul probably. And Hugh McCracken also plays on this album, along with Denny Sywell, who later joined Wings. So I love that track. Long Haired Lady is too long. It has a refrain at the end which is far too reminiscent of Hey Jude. It's got a nice little couple of tunes in the middle, but when it came to criticising this album, I think the critics had a point with a song like this, because it really it's a bit disjointed, and it's not very top notch in my opinion. So I don't much care for that one. Backseat of My Car is a great track, especially the first 2.5 minutes of it. Great melody. This was chosen in the single as the single in the UK. It didn't do nearly so well as Uncle Albert did in the US. I think it only just about reached the top 30. But it's a great tune. It's kind of reminiscent of Abbey Road. But the ending is very strange. It's almost as if Paul can't decide how to end a song. It's extended. It's got some kind of not too good guitar at the end and some screaming vocals. But there's a really classic song underneath all that. It's just that I think maybe he was missing George Martin or something at this stage. Didn't really know how to produce it too well. So this album, I'm going to give it probably a 9 out of 10. On a good day it might be a 9.5. I can't quite give it a 10 because some of the lyrics are a little bit, I wouldn't say confrontational, but there's enough good material on here to justify a 9 out of 10 easily. Just whether you go the extra mile to a 10. With those tracks I didn't much care for, Smile Away and Long Haired Lady. I don't know. This is the back cover, and this features a picture of 2 Beatles copulating. I think that's in thoroughly bad taste, and I'm sure the other Beatles were pissed off with that. This is like less than 5 months after Paul took the other 3 Beatles to court, and Paul in a recent interview says he just thought it was an amusing picture, but that was very naive of him if he thought it wasn't going to upset A, the fans, and 2, the other 3 Beatles. But anyway, that's a minor criticism, I suppose. This is a nicely packaged album, nice artwork from Paul and Linda on the front, good picture of Paul. So it's aged a lot better than it was received at the time. It really was hammered at the time. They wouldn't give it anywhere near a 9 out of 10. So if the average mark is a 9 or a 9.5 from fans these days, that's a lot better than a lot of people were thinking at the time. But I think with hindsight, it is a brave album. It is experimental. And okay, it's not heavy like John or George's first solo work, but so what? So that was Ram. Thanks for watching, and happy Christmas to everyone.